I will be interviewing my grandma for my project homework on World War II evacuees. So, first question is, what year were you evacuated?
1939.
Where did you get evacuated from?
From Prenton in Birkenhead.
Like were you scared in the war?
Yes and no. The bombs were dreadful in Prenton because there was, in Home Lane, there was a gun emplacement where the house used to go boom, 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 like that and shake.
Wow.
But what I did like, I was only little, I didn't realise what they were looking for, but there were searchlights and they used to stab the sky, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers of light stabbing the sky, looking for aeroplanes. They were looking for German aeroplanes.
Yeah.
And I used to like to see those because they were coloured.
Mm-hmm.
And white, and they used to crisscross the sky like that.
Yeah. How old were you when you were evacuated?
Oh, 3.
Wow, that's quite young.
Well, it was because my mum was having another baby, you see.
Yeah.
She was moved to safety as well.
Second question. Where were you evacuated to?
Gresford in North Wales. And we went from Woodside Ferry because there used to be a train terminal there, and there were hundreds of children all on the pavements outside in schools. They were allocated with their teachers and their schools to blocks like that.
Yeah.
And they had lists, and Mum and I were about halfway. We were individuals. I wasn't in a school, but I've realised since that my mother was having another baby, and that's why she was allowed to come with me. All the other children were with their teachers. They weren't allowed to have their mothers with them because their mothers had to stay with other children at home.
Yeah.
And they were going from in schools, a block of schools with a teacher and a class to be allocated homes when they got to North Wales.
Around how many people were at the train station when you were being evacuated?
I should say about 500 or 600.
Wow.
Wow. And they didn't know where they were going once they got to Gresford or Gresselt or whatever. They didn't know where they'd be going to sleep or live.
Yeah.
It must have been very frightening for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I had my mum with me, so it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
I was extremely lucky.
At the house in Gresford, how big was it?
Huge. It was the largest house I'd ever seen in my life. And initially I was frightened because there was a little, when we pulled into the driveway, I haven't told you, there was a chauffeur-driven car waiting for us at the station, and Mrs. Soames had sent her car with a chauffeur to pick up this pregnant lady who was my mum, and an evacuee, one evacuee she said she'd have, and a pregnant lady. And we got to the house in Gresford, and we swept into the driveway, and there was a lovely little lodge house, like the lodge house at Arrow Park. Do you know the little lodge house I mean? And I thought, oh goody, it's like a fairy tale cottage, we're going to live there. But the chauffeur-driven car drove past, and I started to cry then. I didn't mind anything else except that we weren't going to stay in that little house.
Yeah.
And we saw the big house, and the staff was all arranged on the steps. There was a cook and maids and 2 gardeners called Johnny and Alec, and they used to do the gardening, and they became my best friends because if they were gardening, they used to let me watch in a hammock. Do you know what a hammock is?
Yeah.
Slung between 2 trees.
Mm-hmm.
They'd lift me into it and push it, and it would swing like this, and I'd look over the edge and I could watch them mowing the lawns. I used to love that.
What's your main memory in the house?
The main memory is of the kitchen. It was huge, and it had copper pans, a long table with drawers in with knives, big carving knives and forks. Yeah. And cook used to bake all sorts of things in there, and she invited me in to make little tarts and little cakes, and I could ice them. She was very, very good.
What was another memory about the house?
Of a soldier coming down the front path towards the front door, and he was in khaki uniform, and he had what they call a bandolier across his chest like that. Yeah. Like a gun holster. Mm-hmm. And I ran into the kitchen, which was at the back of the house, and I said, cook, there's a soldier coming down the path. She said, oh, that'll be Mrs. Soames's grandson, I think, or something, or son, I don't know. and one of the maids started to sing a wartime song. Kiss me goodnight, Sergeant Major, Sergeant Major, be a mother to me. And Mrs. Soames said, how cheeky, how dare you, you've insulted that soldier. And he's related to Mrs. Soames, how dare you.
Yeah. How did you feel about migrants from places like Syria?
It makes me feel sick. It really hits me in the tummy when I think about it. It must be absolutely horrendous for them, because they have to walk and they don't have food, they don't have water, and when they arrive where they're going they're not welcomed. It's absolutely atrocious.
I don't really have any more questions, so thank you for coming to this interview, and now I'll have something to show my friends at school.
Good, I hope they enjoy it.
Yeah, me too.
And I hope they never have to be evacuated.
Yeah.